Hi, I'm Lani Hines, and welcome to my first episode of the podcast Inside the Seams. This is where I'll be talking about all things sports going on in Marquette, and for my first podcastee, I have Coach John Meyer, who's varsity coach for baseball and varsity coach for softball.
Hello, I'm John Meyer. I've been at Marquette since 2000. I've been the head baseball coach since 2003, and I've been a part of the softball program for about the last 5 years. Thanks for having me aboard.
Yeah, of course, anytime. So now kind of to start of like the whole podcast, I want to talk about last season before we get into the season coming up. So 2023 season was it was a little bit of a punch because we got like the season before, 2022, we had beat all the teams Lafayette. We made it to district final champions. 2023, it was not the same. We were first out. So I want to know, like, what is your plan this year for 2024 season to change that first out and go back to district champions?
I think that anytime you go into a season, you need to reboot regardless situation. Last year we returned over 10 or 12 seniors. We had that success in 2022. And you never know how each team is going to respond to whatever it is, success or lack of success. So I think this year we just want to reboot and use it as fuel.
I want to know, like, how do you build that perfect roster? Like, you're like, we need to reboot the team. Do you like say that as in, maybe we need to cut some players, or, oh, maybe we need to pull up from JV? Or
I try to get to, talk to the players individually and just kind of find out what's motivating themselves and what their why is going into the season. And I think this year's mindset, the players do have a mindset where they want to be successful and they want to put in the work necessary, because at the end of the day, it really does take a certain level of effort, dedication, commitment to be a better team and to achieve the goals that are in front of you.
You have those players that are you going on talent or experience? Like, they've experienced this team, they know how the team rolls, they know what to do. Or would you rather cut them off, and then bring in the experienced players who maybe don't know how the team rolls, but they have potential to keep things going and lead us to a champion?
I don't think there's any one right answer to it. I've tried both ways in the past. I think the end result, you're probably going to err to the experience side, because with experience probably comes some maturity and some composure and just a level of confidence that you really can't teach until they actually get in there and do it. So experience plays a very important role.
Last season, I think I had heard you say like the bases were loaded, probably like twice with like the pitchers, and then that is also what came as like to the lead of why we got first out of district champions. So like, what is like that like on there, like when bases are loaded, like how can you like tell a player to like read this situation and know what to do? Like, what advice would you give to your player then?
I do have kind of a set strategy that we prepare them in practice with a bases loaded situation, and it really is, you have to think about what the pitcher's doing and the patterns that you're seeing from their, the pitches that they decide to throw. And at some point they're going to have to throw strikes because they don't want to walk a runner in. Mm-hmm. So you have to teach aggression. You have to teach, there's a lot of mental things that go into it, because I really think that over the past few years I've seen us strand a lot of runners. I mean, how did we get the bases loaded? We loaded the bases so many different times, but then you can't get the run in, which to me has more of a mental block. And you have to kind of coach them like a caddy in golf, where you give them a couple things to think about and you give them a situation. Don't want them to overthink. You want them to be aggressive and you want them to have some confidence, but really it's their voice in their head that they are exaggerating the situation.
You can see who shows sportsmanship on the team and like who will build others up rather than after a game be the coach to the player when they're not the coach, they're just another player.
Yeah, a large part of this is being a good teammate. I think baseball and softball are sports that can beat you up mentally, maybe more so than others. And it's very easy to get into a place in your mind where you're just not very productive. So again, you have to just be very careful with that. But when you have good teammates that you feel like you're supported and that feel like you have my back, I think you again you're on to something very successful.
Because yeah, along with that, like, don't you see, like, I kind of, like, from my experience, whenever I play, like, lacrosse, I have, like, a feeling whenever I'm more with players who are uplifting and show sportsmanship, we become closer and then we play like a team. We play better. Is that what you see in baseball?
Yeah, I think every season, and I don't care what sport, what level, it could be at the professional level. If you look back at their season after they've been successful, there's been some moment in the season, and every team has different variables, but I call it like a galvanizing experience where it brings you together, it makes you closer, and there's this level of trust that is built that becomes something very powerful, and it's like a driving force for your team as you move forward.
So how are you starting that this season? Do you guys have pre-workouts that kind of is like helping the like team bond, or do you have like team bonding, or what's like going on preseason before you start?
With us having a tryout situation, we can't take things too far because then it looks like I already have a roster made.
Yeah.
So, but what we do over the past 4 months, since about late October, is we lift weights 2 times a week in the weight room. Mm-hmm. The weight room reveals a lot. It shows you how hard you want to work. It shows, because you can't make it up, you can't lie. 200 pounds is 200 pounds.
Yeah. So with that, like with them doing like the workouts before the season starts, that kind of like gives you some hope, like, yeah, they're like over there, they have the motivation, they're working for what they want. Like this season will be a good season. But anything in like the back of your mind, like you guys will be playing a team this year that has like an LSU commit. And then maybe you guys will be playing like another team this year that has a Tennessee commit. So in the back of your mind, does that worry you? Like, my team's working for it, but they have like commits. Does that scare you, or is that just another thing?
Well, to say that, I'm very aware of those factors, and I know what we're going to go up against. I think you have to give your players a fighting chance. You have to show that you have confidence in them. And really, if going back to just the roster, if I didn't believe in you and I didn't trust you, I wouldn't keep you. So now here we are, moving down, the schedule to play these teams that have good players, and then they're very competitive teams. If I didn't think we could handle this, we wouldn't be in this situation.
Also, kind of like disregarding like Marquette baseball, whenever you do get into the committing process, like a ton of like juniors starting now like are committing like whatever sport they want, like using baseball as like an excuse, like spring signings coming up, so they will commit for that sport. But it used to be back like in like 8th grade, however old you were, you could commit in 8th grade, and then you could wait all those years till you go to college and you're there. But rules have changed that you cannot commit until you're a junior in high school. How do you view that aspect? Does that make things like easier in your situation, knowing that like you like older players are being a commit, so you don't have to worry about the younger players like being intimidated as much? Or how do you feel about this whole rule change?
I'm very, very happy they have pushed back the decision process and allowed kids to get older and mature before they do it. I was very uncomfortable watching 8th graders make decisions. I've always been a supporter of a late decision can be a great decision, and even if that gets into your senior year, which I've witnessed many, many Marquette players in the past do that. Now, that doesn't mean it's always going to be the perfect fit no matter what, but I just really would argue that an 8th grader has the capacity to see that far down the road and make a decision that impacts them so much. And now you see all these transfer issues in college sports that has truly become maybe too much to handle. And so you know that you're seeing a lot of kids make, I would call them rush decisions, not necessarily bad ones, but it just isn't the right fit. So I think you're going to find a better fit and a better decision if you just give it more time and you don't feel panicked and rushed. So I'm glad to see the changes so far, and I think that it will make a positive difference moving forward.
That I could agree with that 100%, because if I was back in like 8th grade, I had the idea, like a senior now, I'm a senior in 8th grade, I was probably 13, 12, I think, making a lifelong or a 4-year long decision for myself. I would have done anything, the first offer that would have came to me, because I would have been like, oh my gosh, like this is exciting. Like I have an offer, I want to commit. If it was a D1 school, I would have been like, oh, I'm taking up on that right now. Because you're in 8th grade, you're young, you see all of these like fun things coming towards you that you're like, oh, I want to take action on that now. So you commit when you're young, but then you start to change as yourself. Like in high school, like you're not the same person who you were in 8th grade. So you're going to be like, oh, like I don't really have anything in this school that offers for me. Like, yeah, I'm going to play this sport, but what am I going to do with my education? They don't offer that. Or what if it's too far? Like, you don't think of all these factors that you would when you're a senior in high school compared to when you're in 8th grade in high school. And like, could you like see like that like option of where I'm going with that?
This is, you're being invited to their campus that first semester. Then after that, it could go one way or the other. And that's really what everyone's making a big deal out of. And now you're seeing so many people not able to stay and moving on, because you see players now in college transferring 2 and 3 and 4 times in 4 or 5 years. And to me, that's a little too much.
So is this advice, like, I would kind of give this advice to like anyone who's like committed on your team, because I know you do have some committed players right now. So with that, would you like give them this as like a lesson?
Oh yeah, and again, it's natural. It's an easy trap to fall into. I can tell you from all of the players at Marquette that have committed in high school to play college baseball, we're over 100 by now in the last 20 plus years. Literally 35 to less than 40% of those players stuck it out for 4 years, or the remaining, college eligibility. So that should tell you a lot. By far, we're talking 2/3 of all Marquette players, which isn't any different than anybody else, have not been able to make that decision stick for the entire, amount of years in college. So that should get your attention, and just realize that what I'm telling you, I'm being honest, I'm being very straightforward. I don't like to rain on your parade, because I let them enjoy those moments. But when the season starts, those moments are gone. We don't need to have, picture time and happy time on something that's 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Now it's time to play, which is what you've been really working for. This is the competition piece, and then enjoying that process. So that's when they need to transition, and that's coming up here in another couple weeks.
So as you say, like in another couple weeks that's coming up, winter sports are coming to an end, and it's about like time where it's the end of February when spring sports tryout starts, like into March. What do you see is coming up for this new season?
I can't give you anything like tangible, measurable. I can just tell you that I think our team has really good chemistry. There's an interesting part to this. I think we have like 4 or 5 players trying out for the team whose older brothers played on the team. And because I've coached long enough, that kind of happens, because you're talking about more than 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago of all these different siblings. But to me, that has something to do with pride, and it has something to do with wanting to make your mark. And there's something to play for there, that you've watched your older brother be successful. Now it's my turn. It's just kind of like the passing of the guard. So I'm interested to see what that element and what that can do for our team, because I think that adds a different edge, because they all have grown up together, and they've all been friends for a long time. So I think that helps with chemistry, and again, you just have a little different bond than normal. The thing about this year's team is going to be exciting, is that we're going to have a mix of young and old, and it isn't going to just be all young players or all old players. You have to try to make all that to mix together and become productive. And I think that if we have the right kind of leadership, and then the guys that are younger follow the right lead, that could really produce some pretty exciting results. But it'll take 30 games to show that.
All right, I'm excited to see how this baseball season is going to go. I'm really rooting for you guys for this championship, because the student section will definitely be there this year, because we have a lot. I feel like a lot of the players have a lot of the outside friends that a field like of students always comes to the games. So I'm excited to see how that rolls out for you guys this year. And I would like to say thank you for being my first guest on my podcast.
Oh, you're welcome.
And
this is very exciting.
I know. Do you have anything else you would like to say to anyone about the baseball season coming up, or is this?
No, that's the one thing about this year. There's a little less hype. It's kind of off the radar. We get to be an underdog mentality, and we just get to have the target on somebody else's back, and our guys are going to appreciate that and use that to their advantage.
All right. Well, I'm excited to see how it goes. Thank you, Coach Meyer.
You're welcome. Thank you.